And here we are. Hello. Welcome. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, there's the volume. Yeah. Opus, Opus. Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Good, good. I'm happy to be up in the mornings again. I was stuck on a night schedule, and I don't do well with that. But
yeah,
it's very hard for me to flip it around. I blame the autoimmune disease because my body just doesn't. It's not acrobatic like I was when I was younger or before these. One autoimmune disease leads to another. They sort of domino, and next thing you know, you're a broken man plagued by demons.
yeah, I did that to myself. I don't even get an autoimmune disease out of it.
Yeah, you see, you don't have a good excuse like I do, I guess, but
Well,
we work with what we've got, right?
Yep, I think so. Most of the time. Then we get more stuff.
Yeah. How's things? I like the shirt.
Oh, thanks. That's my Sunday shirt.
It's your Sunday shirt.
Yeah, Sundays are supposed to be gold, so I tried to find
Okay.
something that was solid gold, and this reminds me of solid gold, so it'll have to do.
I like it. Solid gold.
Thanks.
Yeah. How's things going in the goetic world?
Well, slowly. There's a there's a lot of different information being passed around. I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of a lot of it. My approach has always been just use the drawing spirits into crystals, the Trithemian conjure approach. But like Jake Stratton Kent has put together this true grimoire system based on 3 different versions of it, and that's really popular amongst a lot of people, and it actually makes a lot of sense. I've been dipping my toes into that a little bit. I've got my little Skirlin seal, and I've started making some packs here and there along the way.
Cool. Yeah, I read.
Sorry, go ahead.
I finally read that while I was in quarantine, having come back to Canada. Mandatory quarantine. I read that and listened to all his interviews. I didn't realize he was such a interesting, sort of level-headed fellow.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like it, but he is.
Yeah, he really is. He's a very, dare I say, down-to-earth, grounded man. It sounds, a human being.
Yeah. I mean, he comes across as a very like edgy, eccentric kind of person online, but in real life, he's just normal.
Yeah,
like the rest of us magicians.
Yeah, I know.
I still wouldn't piss him off, but
right. Yeah, I mean, even those of us who take vows against doing magic on other people still have a few tools up our sleeves if we need them, right?
Well, I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. Right. You're not the one going around turning people into newts and shit like that.
Absolutely not. That would be somebody else.
Only a major asshole would do something like that to another person.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun with that one, though. I must say.
Well, you still look great. It's not 3 a.m. like when we last spoke.
Oh my God, that was awful. I mean, that was a great video. I mean, interview. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but
people really liked it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, I can't re-listen or watch my own stuff as a general rule. It's enough to do it. I don't need to relive it.
Well, did you send me a link to it? Because I mean,
it's on my YouTube as well as on the Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that shit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to track it down and see if I can get some publicity out there for it.
I love your altar setup back there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I finally got moved into my new place, and it's large and echoey. I need to get some carpets in here, but yeah, I'm starting to get everything put up. I've found a big old piece of orange cloth that was going to be a smoking jacket years ago, and it seems appropriate for all my Hermes stuff that I've been working on lately. So I set up a little Hermes altar, and
wow,
good to go.
Hermes stuff. What are you going to do with Hermes?
What am I not going to do with Hermes? So a few months ago, back in, I want to say May, June, probably June, I started a devotional practice with Hermes Chthonios, just to try to get to know him better. And as the somewhat consort. He's only a consort once in any of the texts, but sort of a consort to Hecate. My partner was interested in doing Hecate magic, and I thought I'd tag along on the Hermetic side of things because I've been working on, a lot of Hermetic type applications here and there across the internet for a few years now.
What do you
But
mean by hermetic applications?
well, ways to apply the philosophies of Hermetics to your daily life.
Okay.
Hermetic magic is about conjuring spirits and changing the world. And once you get into the theurgy of it, what just like within the Rosicrucian paradigm. I don't know what to call it, the system of attainment that you guys go through, or you guys that we, I guess, go through. I'm grudgingly a Rosicrucian these days, but um,
We all.
yeah, who wants to do that for free, man? It doesn't seem like it's fair.
Wait,
Oops.
explain that.
Oh,
Do
the
it for
Fama,
free?
the Fama,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
go around and heal the sick and do that for free. No,
That's
I'm
what
gonna.
I've been doing since my solar initiation in 2000. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna stick with charging 125 an hour myself for. People don't appreciate it if you give it to them for free.
Well,
That's my
that's
theory.
what always interested me about uh, the Fama and the Rosicrucian tradition having, healing gratis, right? I always thought it was a very powerful idea that there's no rules on charging for anything else, teaching talismans, magic. And I struggle with the idea of simony, to say the least.
Uh-huh.
It's a real thing I wrestle and think about all the time.
Wow.
But the idea, I thought, that of they don't say you can't do anything for money except healing. They're just like, that's one thing you have to do for free. And I was very
Ah,
intrigued by that.
I never read it that way. I thought it was everything that you do as a Rosicrucian was for healing the sick, and for that you had to do it for free.
See, no, I read it, and the way our order sort of practiced it was, the idea is like you can do all these things now, and there's not necessarily that many guidelines, but the one guideline that's very strict of the four guidelines is heal gratis. You heal for free.
Mm.
And so, I've told in the past, I would tell Reiki people, I'm like, look, if you take this vow, you then can't do healing for free. And of course, that's my interpretation of it. And uh, you know, we all have our own. Again, it's all at the end of the day. Especially once you go through a solar initiation and do that, it really is between you and your higher self. It's
Yeah.
not between you and other mortals anymore. Right? We answer to God, and all human beings do at the end of the day answer to God. Right?
Right. Whether that's our higher self or whatever. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that all works with the God thing because I've met too many gods, so I don't think that they're I don't think that they are what we think they are, but at the same time they aren't something to sneeze at or write off. But when we talk about answering to God at the end of the day, the higher self and all that, I do think that there is a higher self that is part of the divine. I guess I used to rail against the idea because I like to think that who I am is pretty okay and pretty cool, but and that there's nothing better than me. The me I present is the very best me that I can be, but it's not. I fail a lot. So there's
Uh-huh.
got to be something higher that wants something more, but I don't know if that's God or not. But if you go through the headless right, once you take your face off, you are that God, right? So the removal of egos, it can be mapped onto that Stella of Jehu, and the invocation of the bornless, the
Yeah.
headless.
Yeah,
So
I tried to get into the PGM versions of that, but I always I always
oh,
just go back to the Golden Dawn version that I learned in the Inner Order.
well, the Golden Dawn version, that was the one that Rigardi had put it together, right?
Yeah, I believe that it's drawn. It really though is quite a logical putting
Mm.
together of older Inner Order workings. I mean, that's one thing about that's it's hard to explain in the lesser mysteries. That is in the greater mysteries, like the rituals. To me, while there's operation formulas that we follow specifically, you can really start to see how these things are all one, and how the operations blend together, how different passages are interused in different places. And, there's not that much difference between an initiation, talismanic magic, even an evocation, and then a lot of the theurgical rituals, like more or less middle pillars and things that we've invented and put together, especially vault workings. I mean, it really does become this flowing thing, like a martial arts master who just doesn't do a technique anymore. They just flow. They work with space. Right. They're working with space and time and movement, and they're just flowing.
Yeah, but it takes years and years of practice to get to that point too.
Fuck yeah, right?
And that's something that I don't like about it. I wish that everything was a little bit easier. I think it's fair to ask for things to be easier too. And I'm gonna lodge some complaints when I get back to Central. And put my complaints in at the office and ask for a mod to the next release. I don't know. So much of this stuff is just. Yeah, it just is painstaking. I've always been looking for an easy way out. The 7 spheres is like supposed to be this rapid transit version of creating a hermetic magician. And it does work that way. It tears people apart and puts them back together. It does the solving coagula in a very interesting sort of way, I think, because it restructures your life around the 7 planetary principles, the energies and virtues, the pieces of that as you come back down to earth, and empowers you to become a person who can speak their reality into being the way you're supposed to as a manifestation of the logos that's been made flesh. We're supposed to do all that stuff. And it's a nice system and all, but it's still one of those things that takes years and years and years of work to actually consider yourself any kind of a master of it, because it doesn't flow at first, and it never stops having something more to offer. I thought when I started all this, I wanted to do 4 elements, and then I wanted to do the 7 archangels, because 7 planetary, it's only 7 angels to deal with, and I like things simple, and then I wanted to do the Shin Hamefresh, the Shem angels, I want to do this. Excuse me, the 72 angels of that group, and then I wanted to move on to the Ophanim, all the angels of the wheels, and then I wanted to move on from there to the Enochian, because that's the most complicated system that I could think of. And I figured if I progressed gently through these different systems of conjuration and initiation, I would understand it a little bit at a time, and then I could do the more complicated stuff and move on to the next stuff over and over again. But what I found out instead is that the 7 that I started with are the same 7 that follow through with the rest of them, and I can stick with what I'm working on. They gave me enough work to take up all the time I would have spent learning how to do the rest of it. So my great work became just sort of manifesting the things that I was learning from that very simple and almost insignificant, only seven angel system, and it turns out that it's them plus their legions, and they rule over the same things as the 49 angels that rule over the planetary energies and Enochian, and the 49 leaves on the silver book and the Abermelon Rite. It's all the same. Anything that's divisible by 7, chances are they're going to be part of that. So anyway, I forgot how we ended up on that tangent.
Well, so your book, no, go.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was because of the flow that you were talking about, how you become like a kung fu master over time, and and you move from one thing to another. But at the same time, you also end up getting deeper and deeper into the things that you've started with, and it becomes something that, like the simple movements become an art form. One of my friends, Scott Stenwick, are you familiar with his work?
Yeah, I did the master classes on Guidia and Enochian magic that Jason put out, and I actually host them on my hermeticmysteryschool.com website now, so you can some people, because I recommend them. I think they're not just master classes; they're good intros as well. Like, why would I want to spend, say, 30 hours or 20 hours teaching someone everything I know about either Goetia or Enochian. Of course, I don't know Goetia very well. The Golden Dawn does very little of that until the Inner Order, and even then we don't focus on it because we have things like vault work and focus more on Shem Angels. But I did both those things, and I was like, well, I'd rather have a student go through those 7 days of that master class for only $100, and then we can move on from there, especially since it shows them different methodologies. I mean, Frater, Ash, and Chassan is, you might say, somewhat different than, say, S. Connolly, just a little different, right? But some people will find one more appealing than the other. And anything that lays a broad groundwork from multiple perspectives from which we can then do actual work together, that's ideal for me. I mean, I don't want to reinvent the wheel or reteach things that have already been taught that I can just send someone to. That's my approach. I'm not trying to build it all myself. I want to participate in a community that's becoming ever more vibrant in the most delightful way.
Yeah, and that's exactly the vision I have for that Academia Hermetica school. I want it to be a big tent with open microphones, and everybody can just come and talk, so that we can build that community, a clean community that's not beholden to lodges or gurus or anything like that, but where we can actually just exchange the information. You know what I mean?
Did you mention that last time?
I think so, probably.
It's so similar to what the order I was in has broken into many orders, and that my teacher Ramses, he's running OGDU or fellowship, right? He's trying. He also wants to do something similar, but he's busy, of course, just creating online resources for his students and running physical initiations still, which is, as you know, just so much work and often thankless work, but except to a few. But what you're mentioning, it doesn't sound very dissimilar to that, or what I started a couple of years ago with some academics around the world and the Arcane Research Society, which again is building a bridge. I'm looking at bridge building between academic scholarship and practical occultists. And that was the vision that Nicholas Goodrick Clark, my doctoral mentor, instilled in me. He is something, a vision he had for the future. And that the whole Association for the Study of Esotericism, the academic esoteric professional organization, is built around this metaphor of the bridge. But they didn't think about it in terms of practical occultists. That was sort of a step further that I thought was worthwhile. I mean, there's obviously the famous society, which is whispered about, of the academics who practice, but you don't know who those are unless you know, right? And who knows if I don't even know how functional they are. You do?
Yeah.
Well, some of us know them, some of us don't.
Yeah, it's
they can't talk about it too loudly or they'll get fired, right?
No, it's not that. They're just
say more.
I don't want to. I know too many people who are in it. So let's just say that there are academic organizations that are active and meaningful, and then there are others that are really good at talking about things. So
that's
kindly academia
put.
Though. They are academia in general is about researching ideas and exchanging information, and that's fine. Yeah. I just you'll notice that they aren't publishing very much very often. So where's your journal? No journal, no work, man.
You're not speaking of Claire Fanger's Societas Magica, are you?
I don't think so.
No, because that's just a strictly academic group based around her and her work, and it's purely academic in its intent.
No, this isn't about any one person. I don't think.
We're speaking of the same society. Okay. Yeah, well, it's just great. I'm just glad that there's so many people out there doing different things, and like you said, giving everyone a microphone and a voice to share ideas and practices is really important.
I want people to see that we're all teaching the same things. That when you get down to it, the Wiccans, the Thelemites, the ceremonial magicians, everybody who's studied Agrippa, if you've studied your Agrippa, you gotta study the
Agrippa.
You gotta study the Agrippa. Which I have. So, if you've done that, you're going to end up with the same basic set of information. And it's the same information that they were teaching in the mystery traditions in Egypt under Iamblichus and Porphyry, and, well, not Porphyry so much, but Iamblichus was teaching the art of Santhamata and the adoption of God forms to retain or return to your divine nature by practicing. You practice as Thoth, and then you become you find that part of you that Thoth represents, and the overarching whatever, and you manifest that. Um, that's actually, I can't believe the devotional work actually works as well as it does. One of the things, we were talking about the Hermetic altar cloth and everything back there, and Hermes this and Hermes that, and why Hermetics are so important to me. But I started to talk about this devotional practice to Hermes and how everything sort of unraveled and was reformed around the idea of Hermes. And the same thing happened with Jupiter when I was doing the gens for Jupiter. Every time you actually start to devote your time and attention to one particular deity, it definitely manifests in every aspect of your life, and Hermes is no different with his 5 fingers touching everything. I've learned a lot about a lot about deceit as a result of my work with him, and what the nature of the human being and the mind is, and how much of theurgical work is the undoing of lies that we tell ourselves, convenient truths that aren't necessarily grounded in fact. We tell ourselves so that we don't hurt our feelings. So yeah, it's kind of it's pretty neat, the things that are coming out of it. But one of the things that's coming out of it is that Hermes Chthonios, one of his epithets is Lucifer, the light bringer, and I've just started getting into the True Grimoire stuff, and my early initial results of working with Lucifer are incredibly similar to my results of working with Hermes Chthonios. There's a certain, I don't want to say flavor or smell about them, but they're very similar energies, I guess, if you want to call it that. And it just seems like it's very. If you look at the culture in general, there's like a huge movement in the realms of Hecate and the moon, and then there's also this huge movement towards Lucifer and the Goetia approach to the terrestrial kingdoms that we live in, and that's all Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Ashtaroth, right? So the 3 worlds that they represent. So it's just interesting how in the culture right now there's this huge push towards one or the other, with complementary input from both. Like Jake's work is feeding into a lot of the Hecate PGM research that's being done and put out there, and the PGM stuff is feeding back into the True Grimoire traditions, and what's coming out of like London right now. Rob Ryder Hill, his little chat books on how to use the True Grimoire, and his I can't remember what he called it, but he's got this a totally terrestrial, almost blasphemous approach that's sort of loosely influenced, at least by the 7 spheres. But it's a little bit like that, but it's a little bit more focused on the 3 worlds of the Goetic movement that is currently overtaking the the occult spheres by storm. So
yeah. Oops. Do you think now in 7 spheres, your first book, right? It doesn't go through the elemental or lesser mystery initiatory process at all. How important do you think that's something someone can skip and go straight to your book?
Yeah, I do, but I don't think that you get out scot-free. I think that originally the 7 spheres is a green because it's part of the green work. I broke it into the alchemical phases of the black work, the white work, the green work, and the red work.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm Rufus Opus, the red work, right? Because that was my goal. I was always trying to get to it, still working on it. But yeah, the green phase was after in the black phase, you go through and get rid of all the junk, and the white phase, you purify what's left over until it's refined. And then the green phase is sort of optional in most alchemical things. It's like a sub phase of the white phase. But after I've separated it out because I really like being a Taurus, I like Venus and copper, and the heating of copper when you're making talismans or something like that. There's this quenching phase where it goes through the peacock feather colors. This is like the peacock phase, and it adopts all of the colors of the rainbow in various hues, and that's what the seven spheres is supposed to do. It's supposed to integrate the multi-hued energies that form that take the ideas from the mind of God and then manifest them into the actual experience, things that we have here in the material world. That those different types of energies that get applied in different proportions to create existence, before it gets turned over to the four elemental kings, where they put it together into this material world that we actually can see and smell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Do you ever find yourself like going over the whole cosmology of existence and manifestation, like every time you have a conversation?
No, I actually avoid that. Surprisingly,
I'm not very good at avoiding it. I always feel like I have to go back and start there, but yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it's cool. I mean, I struggled a lot with theology and philosophy my whole life, and so after I went through into 5=6 in the Golden Dawn, I decided to go to seminary, and I graduated. I trained as an Anglican priest at St. Augustine's and did that whole thing, got to learn Hebrew, Aramaic. I was part of the last class with the old guard teachers before they all either retired or died during my time there or after. But that meant I was being taught by... Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was too much for them. Though they really enjoyed having me give classes on Kabbalistic mysticism and stuff, obviously watered down in a way that could be taught to ecumenical reverends in training, like Catholics, Unitarians, and everything in between, right? But everyone's fascinated by the Kabbalah because it's so clear that a lot of Christian mysticism did derive from it over the course of the last 2,000 years. As the Kabbalah was being developed, Christians were getting interested in it bits and pieces, and then different techniques like the meditative practices from the clouds of unknowing all were influenced by these same ultimately Egyptian and pre-Egyptian roots of mystery traditions from Gnosticism and everything else, Mithraism, you name it. But struggling with that big picture theology and philosophy as I did resulted in my main opus, which was originally titled very popularly Hermeneutics in the Postmodern Epiclesis. Which yeah, right. That's which was subtitled Semiotics, Deconstruction and Mystical Dialogue. That then it's a very academic title, right? Because my main interest is in semiotic methodology. I'm a big fan of Charles Sanders Peirce, who's a American philosopher, Ferdinand de Saussure, the Swiss linguist, and then Umberto Eco, who really tied semiotics together with a massive theory that worked.
I think I've read your book now your
I renamed it The Ethics of Understanding God, and that's out on Amazon.
Maybe I haven't read it.
Yeah, and it's dense. It
does sound familiar.
And it does make use of critical theory to an extent, because how critical theory and academia, the way it's being understood in a popular way, in the way that, for example, Jordan Peterson is critical of it and people like that, that's not accurately how it is. I mean, a lot of people talk about Michel Foucault and they really reduce him to a single idea, but that's not accurate. So I use it in a more proper academic context, which is these different models of thought are really tools for understanding thinking in general. I mean, the idea that someone is just a post-structuralist is, to me, very absurd. Post-structuralism naturally came after structuralism. And when I was even studying these things from 2000 to 2006 in grad school, I was sort of like, well, these are ideas from the 60s and 70s onward. But is this where things are at? And it was quite clearly said to us, like, no, we're not in a postmodernist, post-structural era academically or intellectually right now. We're post. We're post-religious. We're post-structuralism. However, these ideas haven't even begun to hit the mainstream yet, and that's what you'll see over the next 20 years. And guess what? They were right, because those ideas are now talked about mainstream in highly reduced forms and largely misunderstood, especially as they're used by radical right or left people to promote their own ideological agendas, as opposed to understanding them as techniques of thought, which are heuristic and really just meant to help you get from one rung of the ladder to the next rung. And once you've gone up the next rung of the ladder, you don't need the rung below you, right? You're moving onward and you're meant to develop your thinking further. So when it comes to cosmologies, my book really broke things down into two pre-categories, or forms of pre-semiosis, which was nature and spirit. Ultimately, if you break things down to what does exist in the real, what we have is nature as reality, and then something slightly different from nature that's interpenetrated with it that we don't fully understand scientifically, spirit. So you could say there's nature and spirit as pre-semiotic formats. And that is tied very closely and intimately into a thought from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, which is in the idea of natura naturata and natura naturans, which is the idea of nature naturing and nature natured. There's the part of nature that is creating nature and the part of nature that is created by that creation of nature. So is this subtly nuanced and philosophical? You betcha. But we're trying to explain things that physical sciences, the hard sciences, don't fully grasp yet. I mean, we can't even see dark matter yet. And once we do, I think we'll understand a whole lot more. I mean, I was looking at the alien stuff that's coming out now. And I really have never believed in aliens per se. And the more that we are seeing stuff unveiled about them, the more I really do think that they are spirits. That's what I think.
I've thought that for years.
That's what I always thought.
But we interpreted it as angels and demons, and what we interpret as aliens now, they're the same thing. It's just different constructs go into interpreting the phenomenon.
Yeah. So when I started experimenting with DMT last year and this year, and I've done a lot of highly controlled experiments using ritual magic and DMT, one thing I've experienced from those spirits is their vibe is incredibly similar to what I've gotten from the years of working with the elemental prayers, the gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, those kingdoms, even as they sort of interrelate to the watchtowers, the Enochian spirits and angels, it sort of seems to flow and integrate very well together. And the last final experiment I did on DMT, I think it was number 22, appropriately, I actually had a full vision of Ezekiel, like the full vision, in a way that I believe I had the real vision. And what I had to do to get to that state in those realms was shocking to me. And what I had to do to communicate with that vision once I had it was, the most profound thing I've experienced in my life.
So the vision of Ezekiel that you're talking about is of the fiery chariots?
And the cherubim and the face of God speaking directly to my soul. And I had to let go of, I had to stand naked before God and speak my true name and speak and then once I was accepted, I got to ask my question, and the answer was shocking and powerful and transformed me. This is an example of some of the things we can do during quarantine. It's not all bad.
No, I mean, total enlightenment, understanding the mechanical nature of the universe, that's not a bad thing.
Well, the challenge, the interesting thing about the Hermetic path, like Hermes, we move between worlds. And I love that statement from I think it was Jason Louv on Midnight Gospel, who said, in the Western mysteries, our goal is not enlightenment. Enlightenment's our starting point, because our first goal is to get that solar initiation, is to be able to cross the abyss. It's be able to communicate with our higher self. Whether you think that's the same or different from your holy guardian angel, we'll leave Aaron Leach to figure that out. Who cares? Who cares?
Who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, do you fucking get what you need or not?
Well, see, that's the Taurian thing about you that I love so much, because I've got like no earth in my chart and no water pretty much. I have a Venus in Capricorn and I have a Scorpio ascendant, but other than that, I'm all fucking air with a little bit of fire, just enough to get me out of bed in the morning. But yeah, when you're
enough to get me in trouble,
when you're staring into the face of God or communicating with these holy spirits, whether soberly in ritual or entheogenically, it doesn't really matter. And that's one thing I like about the grimoire tradition, is we know that it's not a cut and paste complete system. We know that there are techniques and tools and insights developed by other human beings to get us in touch with these spirits. And like I was recently working a lot with the evocation of Midir that W.B. Yeats wrote, and the goal was to get in touch with that spirit. Once I did, I created for hours while communicating, letting that spirit use me to create a sigil that I could then communicate with him more directly thereafter. And things do get simpler as we go along. We break things down from these complex rituals into the very simple premises that we can use to do and achieve things in this world and in other realms.
Right. And if what you just hit on one of the key techniques about magic that I don't think it gets nearly enough press, but
Yay.
the using magic to learn magic.
See, that's one thing that I've gotten from listening to these academics and covering them on my podcast a lot, like going through their essays and commentating on them, and thank God for academics, because, we often want to, us magicians, we read a couple things, we do some rituals, and we're like, here is the truth. Behold it, I have found it. And then you get a bunch of academics come along and say, like, well, that's not consistent with the sources that you're actually deriving that truth from. So if what you're doing is working for you, amen. But what about this? And I love the question, what about this?
And what about the fact that you're doing something completely wrong? You just made that up. No, I mean, I get that a lot because I made up a lot of things along the way.
The best rituals are made up.
Well, and it's based on your understanding at the time, and that's going to change over time. I mean, I know a lot more about Neoplatonism than I did when I wrote the Neoplatonic Basics, and it really is the Neoplatonic Basics. It's like the uber basics, and I thought it was this profound understanding that I had at the time, but it just barely scratched the typeface of the surface.
That's heuristics for you.
The font name, So, yeah. It's the onion that keeps on giving. That keeps on giving. So yeah, I
think a lot of it has to do with, and we don't talk about this too much, and I avoid this word usually famously. It has to do also with our psychic development, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the time, the things that we need, like the flashing colors of tatwas, of sigils, of elemental weapons. A lot of people think they look silly, especially the bright colors in the Golden Dawn. People think it's like just very cartoonish. But of course, Stephen Skinner would say that the spirits can't tell the difference between a colorful paper crown and one actually made of gold and gemstones. To them, it's like, oh boy, this guy's wearing a crown. I better listen to him. That's Stephen Skinner makes a very good point there. But also I see it as it's imprinting in our sphere of sensation. These we're training our astral senses to pick up on these subtler energies in their full vibrant form. And one thing you see in psychedelics is always, if you do enough of them, very bright colors. It's not grayscale worlds you see. It's brightly colored worlds. And there's such an intimate relationship between sound, especially using vibratory technique, and visualization of these bright colors, that like color and sound really flow as one on a physical level. And as we train in those realms using these complex operations like the LBRP, middle pillar, star ruby, I guess for OTO folk. And I want to talk about that if we can briefly.
Sure.
Because I get a lot of questions about it. I'm like, I don't know, I'm GD. And they're like, you're GD? Oh shit. I'm like, yeah. But they're like, but you're called Frater. I'm like, oh, baby, where do we start with that one? Yeah. I mean, history is one thing we all need to keep studying forever.
Perhaps.
It doesn't hurt to know a little history, eh? I mean, otherwise,
where Frater comes from.
Yeah. So those complex rituals, I mean, they start sort of basic with the LBRP, but they get more and more complex with the supreme rituals and the hexagrams and watchtowers. But it's like this curve I see of from simplicity to complexity back to simplicity, and then you get that Ouroboros function happening, right?
Right. Yeah. Hey, I got a question for you. You were Imperator, right? At one point.
I was that and more. Yeah.
Right. So I was also Imperator. I don't know if we talked about this last time or not. I was pretty high at the time, but there was a time that I was Imperator of the AA, and I would just like to formally announce that this is the former Imperator's summit between the AA and the Golden Dawn. I was thinking about that today.
I was just in charge of Canada for a while until I was 23. Things fell apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy.
No, you're 23. I thought it was just a little bit ago.
Oh no. Well, I joined.
45.
I joined the Golden Dawn when I was 15, and I finished the Outer Order during grade 12, was initiated into Portal, had to do a year and a half in Portal because I was so young, and they wanted to make sure I was really ready. And then I had a very severe training. I was trained in the harshest. I was the harshestly trained person that our order ever saw. And the reason for that was I was being groomed, for sure. And then the adepts above me in Canada kept leaving to get married and go have kids or start their own temples, like Martin did with Selesky. And I was left holding the reins. And of course, the Philosophi and the Outer Order, some of the members, they didn't really want to teach classes or do work anymore, or do even ritual work. They just wanted to be honored and have power. And I was like, that's not how this works. And I was told by the Inner Order internationally just to expel those people, but I didn't, because I was too young to know how to carry that Imperator sword and wield it properly. Right? I should have stayed as Praemonstrator and focused on teachings. And I was already charged with rewriting all the material. And we were full-time temples, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for hundreds of members. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm close to a person who's running a Golden Dawn order, and it seems like rewriting everything is like a major part of your job description.
People love doing that, and I think it's sort of silly to an extent, but I don't know, more about that next time.
Yeah, I don't know, but the thing about the Imperator that you said, wielding the sword in an effective way, in a meaningful and effective way. When you were 23, you didn't have the skill sets to do it. Well, when I was 45, I didn't have the skill sets to do it either. And I would just like to complain that there is no guidebook for what an Imperator is supposed to do. Nobody tells you what it just says. The Imperator says that something is done a certain way, and that's how it's done. And that's all. That's your entire job description, is you tell people what to do.
Yep.
I was like, fine, fuck it, I'm going to tell people what to do, and they didn't like it very much.
Yeah, that's what I found. They especially didn't like it coming from a 23-year-old, right, or 22-year-old actually. They really didn't like it, and their egos couldn't handle it. Even though I was they loved and respected me up until that point, but as soon as I was the guy, they started sending like hate letters to the Inner Order complaining about me. Of course, the Inner Order didn't respond to them, just forwarded me the hate emails and was like, deal with these people. I mean, if you need to just get rid of them, get rid of them, because this is not what the work's about. These people are complaining about having to do ritual work. It's like, if you don't want to do ritual work, you shouldn't be in a magical order. Right, I mean, totally. They're at that point, they're just attached to the community and being called honored and dressing up.
Well, do you want to talk about? You said you wanted to talk about the
Star Ruby.
OTO stuff. The Star Ruby, that's what it was. Oh, I
yeah. So a spiritual directee of mine asked about it the other day, asked about how much I do it. I'm like, no, I don't do it at all. And I only recently saw an AA member just do it while I was in quarantine, performed it in front of me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. You went counterclockwise. To me, that's antithetical to the way our magic works. Do you have thoughts on the Star Ruby for people who might consider using that ritual in their practice? Do you see it as a replacement for the LBRB? Because I always saw it as Crowley maybe just taking the piss to see who he could fool. I'm being honest.
So he does that, but he does it in a very prankster way. Like the merry pranksters were always trying to trick someone into thinking for themselves, The Star Ruby, if you actually look at it, is not anything at all like the lesser vanishing ritual of the pentagram, other than the fact that it has it is somehow associated with the pentagram rites. But it's not a pentagram rite. It's not a vanishing ritual. It's an invocation of power, and it's actually it's more of an attack than anything else. It's grabbing your power by the balls, literally, and claiming it and directing it as you will to thrust out. It's the apo pontos kako daimones.
Yeah.
Apo ponto kako daimones. It's that part of it it's away every spirit. It's not come to me, oh, you archangels of the four corners of the world that rule over all things and bring balance. And it's not about that. It's about it's the GTFO of the elemental kingdom.
Interesting.
So it's not a banishing ritual. It's it's a
It sounds pretty banishing.
well, I mean, that's the result, but it's an empowering ritual. It's
Okay.
to empower the magician and to remind the magician of who they are as a creative force within the universe, right? You know, the whole phallic imagery of Zeus is not about his dick; it's about the fact that he is the source of all of creation, and the dick wasn't supposed to be the point; it was just supposed to be a symbol. But people are all like, "Oh, a pee." So they missed out on the fact that when he goes, "Oh, phallus, my strength," it's not the phallus that he's touching; it's the root chakra. It's the source of where we're at in this material world, and it's touching. It's just reminding yourself that you are God. That within you flows the powers of deity, and what you say goes. And it's more about having a reset for the magician than it is about changing anything in the world around you, in my opinion.
So what's with the counterclockwise nature of it?
You're taking something apart. You're not building something up.
Yeah,
You're removing barriers rather than building walls.
Yeah, that's what the hypothesis someone gave me was, it's getting rid of stuff. So going counterclockwise.
Have you done it before?
No.
Okay, so I had to do it for a little while.
Mm.
I had to write an essay on it. It's a bunch of fucking bullshit, in my opinion. It's not the kind of magician I am.
But the ritual?
No, the assigned work and do this, X number of times and then write an essay about it. I disagree with that approach to magic, but whatever. It works for a lot of people, so it's just personal preference.
Well, I'm definitely into talking about methodologies of education.
Yeah, I prefer tactile learning when it comes to magic.
So
percussive maintenance.
So what does that look like if someone's just starting practicing the LBRP in the middle pillar, for example, getting their basic rituals going, or if they're into Wicca and they're learning how to cast a circle and draw down the moon? What's your sort of tactile methodology?
Well, for me, it's here's the system, here's the tools, go do it.
Yeah.
It's not practice this first, and then when you can say it all just right, then go do it. Or incorporate it into the next step. It's not that. It's here's the whole thing. Here's the Trithemian entire conjuration of a spirit from start to end. Everything you have to do to manifest a spirit in a crystal within a certain amount of time, and it's a simple approach. And you do the whole thing, and it includes all the circles and the banishings and everything that it's supposed to have already. You say the prayers, you say the words, you do the circle, you consecrate the ground for your defense, you call on the higher powers, you do all the things you're supposed to do. There's no point in practicing the things that are already in the script. You know what I mean? Like, if you have to learn the whole script anyway to put on the play, why do you make an entire season about one scene? You know what I mean? Like, it's like within the time it takes to learn your LBRP and your hexagram rights and get them actually right from memory, just the lesser ones, not even the greater things. It just takes years. I mean, it can, if you do it right, and years into it you're still going to be learning it, and it's really easy to stop at the LBRP and the middle pillar, and the middle pillar wasn't even a thing before Regardia came along. It's not like these are ancient techniques of mystical enlightenment and empowerment. They're just a couple 100-year-old methodologies that came out of spiritism and wishful thinking. There's no Springle or whatever her name was, Anna Springle. I don't think that she existed.
Oh, there was, and it was a man. Yeah, Anna Springle was a man.
All right, but it was. But
there's been a new
crap.
Not as much as we thought. Christopher McIntosh has went back to the Freemasonic archives, looked at the writing, and did an analysis of the German. And so I did a little bit on that. You should, if there's one podcast I did that you should check out, listen to that one.
I'm familiar with the research.
The research. Yeah. Well, it's not much more than it was. All we know for sure is that Westcott was communicating with a German adept, and there was a lot of magical lodges at that time in Germany. I mean, Rudolf Steiner was trained out of them and was a Mason
Yep.
and part of these other groups. So they were floating around. It just doesn't mean something grand or multidimensional like some
Right.
people pretend it
And
does.
the guy that they was communicating with, he wasn't supported by anybody else.
Not
Right. It wasn't
necessarily.
as he wasn't representing the order that he belonged to when he was communicating with Mathers. It wasn't a charter that he was authorized to give.
Westcott. Yeah.
Right. He
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah. So it's not the whole Golden Dawn system is based on this mythology that isn't real,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like, and if you go to the AA, the very first thing that you experience in the AA is the reading of the history lection, and the history lection is the story of how Aleister Crowley and Frater DDS destroyed the Golden Dawn. It's a bunch of shit. I mean, the Golden Dawn is still out there, and I like to tease people in the Golden Dawn and say, "Oh, Aleister Crowley destroyed you."
Oh well,
you know?
everyone loves to say that. Yeah, I mean,
But
no,
it's not.
it went to
Who
New
gives a-
Zealand, and yeah, the idea that lineage was important was a
Well,
sad byproduct of the trend that sort of Blavatsky had created with her masters. And so if they were
right,
going to
because
create
gender,
a competing order, they felt they also needed these masters as well. And that led to this whole lineage war that's gone on, and it's just a bunch of bullshit.
yeah, we've carried it over into the AA lineage things. I think lineage matters. In the AA system, you get to a certain degree, and one of the things you're supposed to do is create a mystery school that is initiatory, and that's like your task of your grade.
That's the task
You know?
in 6 = 5 in the Golden Dawn.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, you know, I'm sorry, but you're creating a new system
Yeah.
of magic that takes all the pieces and parts that you've learned in this other thing, and it creates something new, and it continues what existed before, but it does it in a new way, right?
Yeah.
That's lineage. That's what lineage is all the fuck about.
Amen.
I learned this, I took it, and I built this, and I passed it on. That's what lineage is, and lineage does matter. It does. It gets passed on. It's a continuation of the current. It's a different branch. It's a different fruit. But that's the way the system is designed to work. And
So
when people argue about lineages and say my lineage is valid and therefore yours is not, it's like,
Yeah.
you fucking missed the point. If
That's
the Golden
it.
Dawn was great, then when it branched out, each branch should be bearing fruit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's not a competition between the branches.
Hell no.
You know, the branches are just there to support the fruit.
Wonderful.
You know, and
So
what
lineage
fruit
does
do?
matter, but lineage matters in the way that we're talking about it here.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
in this bastardization of it that's been used to thump
Yeah,
people over the head.
mine's real and yours is not. You know?
Yeah. So this
And
is really
that's
good for
that's
people
copyright
to
issue.
think about it.
That's all that is. You know, I earned this. You know, the thing about academia that I've noticed is that everybody steals everybody else's work. Tom Lehrer, that comedian that is saying, the mathematician, you know what I'm talking about?
No, tell me.
Tom Lehrer, the entertainer. He used
That's
to do.
a comedian I don't know.
Oh, he's a mathematician from like the 50s, and he would do these little ditties on a piano. Anyway, he was really hilarious, but he had songs like "Poisoning the Pigeons in the Park," and but he has this one song about how to get ahead in mathematics, and it's plagiarize, plagiarize, plagiarize. And it's basically what people do in academia. You do your research and you try to scoop everybody else and get your thing published before everybody else does. And the community isn't that different in academia than it is from all the lodge organizations and the lineage arguments, and it can be such a pain in the ass, you know. And I got really into the whole lineage argument for a long time because I believe the OTO fucked up in the way that they picked the AA to align with. They picked some guy from Tennessee who heard voices basically and said, "Oh, okay, you represent the true AA." And it's like, just because he'd met Moto once. And I'm like, fuck, no, this isn't real when we have people who are actually initiated into the tradition that goes back to Cephalou under Crowley. Obviously, that's the lineage that's right, and they're the ones that should be associated with the OTO. But in real life, everybody who's associated with the OTO and that branch of the AA they're doing the same thing
Yeah.
as if they were part of the official AA. It doesn't matter in practice. And in that regard, there isn't one more valid lineage of AA in the Thelemic OTO organization than another. Even the one that I was fighting for isn't more valid. It's just, the lineage is the survival of the tradition. That's how you know a lineage is valid. You look at all the Golden Dawn branches out there, and I love to make fun of them. I really do. But it's just for fun. You got to respect the the forest of trees that are out there. And I know that your order has a so
Oh, well,
I
the order I was in is long gone.
right. Yeah, well, except for you're still working, right?
Well, I'm not in any order. I'm complete.
No, in between orders at the moment, but
by staying unaffiliated, I don't fall under
right.
vows.
We call it the night of East and West in the OTO. It's between the grades of the Hermit and the Lovers. No, the Hermit and the Lovers and the Man of Earth triad. That's what it is.
Yeah, well,
and it's sort of in between like that, unaffiliated and not beholden to none.
I noticed that there's no one doing what I'm currently doing, and I was like, well, maybe clearly that's what I'm meant to be doing, right? Because if I had signed on with Frater Yeshi when I had the chance, or if I rejoined like Ramsey's my old teacher and mentor who's running the Fellowship of the Golden Dawn, or the Sodalitas Rosea Crucis, Tommy Westland has a great group going on with amazing archives and etheric links and all that. I would fall under vows because, you know, I'd be learning new things. I'd be learning different methodologies that I would not be allowed to share. I just think there's a lot of people out there right now who are so interested in the things that you and I do, and it's hard for them to get a good bearing on what the right path for them is to learn this stuff if everyone they're talking to is affiliated with an order and is just going to say join us, and that's all they
and
can
also,
say.
Here's the LBRP and the middle pillar, and you know, do you
I
think
like the idea of pioneering those methodologies and stuff. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, do you think it's necessary to do all that to be able to do? I mean, we started this branch of the conversation talking about elemental initiations versus planetary initiations, and should you do one before the other? I know that in the Golden Dawn, the approach was 4 elements, the 7 spheres, and then whatever the attainments are after that. The approach is methodological, and it makes sense. It's rational. But if you look at the grimoire traditions, there's nothing about getting initiated into the elemental kingdoms. The Karsis, the conjurer, the person that's the sorcerer, whatever you want to call them, the person who calls on the spirit might be a priest, might not be. You never really know. You got to guess by the types of liturgy that are incorporated, whether they were Protestants or Catholics. You know, it's a there's nothing in there about going through a lodge initiatory system, and the idea that the priests were also Masons is ridiculous. The Masonic traditions are not the clerical ecclesiastical traditions, and if there is overlap, it's contrived to say this equals that and that's the same as this, and you know there's just there's no requirements in the grimoires to be initiated, to be baptized. Well, I guess to be baptized in some of them, but you know there's nothing that says you have to have this mystical power bestowed on you, or if you don't know how to do an LBRP, you know the demons aren't going to come. It's not how it works. So
well, right.
I guess
they used Catholic Psalms instead of LBRP and BRH. They used Incensum Misudate Benedictum and Asperges Me Domine, right? Yeah, that was how they did it. And that's still valid. Like you can set your circle. I'll set my circle either by doing an LBRP and a BRH, or I'll go around with the Aspergillum and the incense, doing Incensum Misud and Asperges Me, either in reverse order, depending on whether I'm doing an exorcistic working or more charging or initiatory working. I'll switch the water first or the fire first. But also you can just go each quarter and wave your thing and say, I purify thee with water, I consecrate thee with fire. You can do that. It all works, right? Just like sitting in a circle with your fellow Wiccans and visualizing a ball of light grow bigger till it encompasses you all also works.
Right.
You can dance around with a broomstick. I love dancing around with a broomstick, especially when I'm doing psychedelic work. It's really visceral and physical, and I'll sing and chant and do crazy stuff, and by the end I see this vortex of power, and the spirits want to come into my little copper scrying bowl, and that's when
and you want to talk to them, and you want to do some magic with them.
Then we get
you
going.
Want to create the world, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we do the magic for, is to create the world.
Yes.
We don't do it so that we can argue about the LBRP versus the Aspergus Mayhem. No. We can if we want to. But that's where people get stuck. It's like, this is real and that's not, and this is true and that's not, and I do it this way, and I have to feel good about myself by making you feel bad about not doing it my way. And fuck off.
It really is beginner talk, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it's like, no, once you've done this stuff a certain amount, once you do this stuff for so many years, right, those arguments drop away. They fall like scales from your eyes, because you realize that's not where the work is.
Yeah, and that's why in Seven Spheres I throw people right into the Seven Spheres. It's not about all the other, because nobody put everybody through the 4 elements before they did the 7 spheres before. Nobody did that.
Right. So I think
Obermelon, you could argue, does that, but it stops there then,
So like the Abermelon you would consider a solar initiation, right?
I would have probably a couple of years ago.
In your 7 Spheres book, you sort of talk about it that way.
Yeah. I definitely thought it was at the time. I'm still, I don't know. I think my understanding of what a solar initiation was at the time was very simplified, very cartoonish compared to what a solar initiation is. I don't know that I would equate them quite the same way as I did at the time. But
it's a term we get from Rudolf Steiner, I believe. In fact,
is it?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I thought it was just because it was an initiation into the sphere of the sun, so we called it solar.
So when it comes to the elemental initiations of the lesser mysteries, which we have in the Golden Dawn system, to lead you up to the Veil of Paroquet and the portal grade into the Vault of the Adepti and the solar initiation, in my opinion, that whole system is a replacement for the Abermelon. And I can see Aaron Leach rolling his eyes right now as I say that in the astral plane. But that's okay, because here's it's a slightly complex thought, but I'm sure everyone can handle it. So there's a lot of debate saying, like, the higher self, the greater neshama, the Eric Anpin, the greater face of the tree of life, the true self is different from the Holy Guardian Angel, which is a distinct entity which is summoned by doing the Abermelon, or in some people's opinion can be replaced by Liber Samic in the OTO or AA, and then or replaced in the Golden Dawn by doing the invocation of the higher genius, which is of course what we do. But in my experience, the Golden Dawn tradition is essentially that whole purpose is to put you in touch with your Holy Guardian Angel through that 5-6 initiation, and that's what the portal in 5-6 does achieve. So that's why the purification process throughout the grades is a great way over. You're not doing it over 18 months. You're doing it over years, preparing yourself for that contact. And then that's when the magic begins. Once you have that Adeptus solar current moving through you, that's when you can then dive into Goetia or Enochian magic or whatever else you want. And the advantage of doing it in a Golden Dawn system through those elemental grades, whether you do it in a traditional order that only has the basic rituals and does it rather quickly, like Scarborough's Ordo Stella Matutina is very traditionalist. Frater Yeshi's is somewhat traditionalist. Some of the orders are just take a bunch of inner order stuff and throw it in the grades. I was talking to a 7=4 trained by Frater Yeshi, and he thinks that the Tatwa scrying should be introduced in Neophyte. And I was like, tell me why. And we talked for hours. And at the end, I was like, wow, I really agree with you on that, actually. He's like, yeah, all adept work is scrying, essentially. And so we should get people going into that much earlier on. So I'm advising people that I work with to start with basic path working and scrying earlier on. But again, because anything that gets you doing this work more on a daily basis from the get-go, that's a good thing, right? If you're excited and on fire to get up and not just do 20 minutes of ritual work that day, but say 2 or 3 hours, then do that. That's what's good. Whatever gets that sulfurous energy going and your passion to, like, you know, do the work, inflame thyself with prayer.
Exactly. That's the thing. I'm stretching right now because of course I'm tired, but
yeah, you're
but
showing
I
off
mean,
your body to the girls on YouTube. You're single now, right?
ladies. Oh, single-ish. Not really.
Singlish.
You know, serial monogamists, we tend to get ourselves right back into another relationship as soon as possible. So,
Well, congratulations.
well, we'll see. We'll see. Don't know if I'm too broken for putting someone else through another Rufus Opus experience, but we'll see.
So that's my thoughts.
I'm not showing off my body.
So, you know, and here's the terminological issue I see with the Holy Guardian Angel these days is if you want to say that the Golden Dawn tradition is not designed to put you in touch with your Holy Guardian Angel, but to put you in touch with your higher self or true self, and that the Holy Guardian Angel is something different, well, if you say that, you can be like, okay, but the phrase Holy Guardian Angel is used in the Golden Dawn to refer to your higher self in many ways. Is that something that is separate or separate and distinct from you or part of you? Well, at a certain point on the tree, if we look at that cosmology, that differentials sense doesn't really make a difference. It really doesn't. The I and thou, right? That's sort of the mysteries of Binah and Hakma and the three supernals, is that differentiation. It doesn't become one. It doesn't become separate. It's just like, you know, Crowley spoke quite well of this, actually, as everyone listening knows what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But yeah, so if you say, well, the Holy Guardian Angel is something else, it's like, fine. But in the Golden Dawn, that term is used this way. So you can say that they're mistaken, or you can just say, well, they're defining the term differently. You can say that that the Abramelin, if the Abramelin is a ritual designed to put you in touch with a specific being, and that being is called this, and there's no other ritual that can put you in touch with that being, fine. I have no problem with saying that this ritual, this series of workings, puts you in touch with a specific entity that can't be contacted in any other way. That's fine. You can say that, right? And you can't really debate it unless you then do the ritual in that way. But as far as the broader terminological sense is concerned, I mean, we use words. Words are defined by how we use them. And so if you're using a word in a certain way, you're not wrong. You're just using it in that way.
Right.
It's semantics, but they matter.
They do. They matter when they do, and then they don't when they don't. I think
that's truly said like an adept.
Right. What makes you an adept is knowing when it matters and when it doesn't.
Yes. So that's really well said.
Well, I think I got it from like John Wayne or something. I don't know. Well, probably Will Rogers. He was a little more wise. But
well, it's like that line in that Thor says in the Marvel movies when someone's like, "That's just Captain Guardian of the Galaxy dude is like, that's a made up word," and Thor's like, "All words are made up." Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna have to cut things short. It's been about an hour now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I could talk to you all day long, but
I do have very flattering.
So,
well,
this is the hard part, is finding time in COVID to just hang out and talk about magic. That was the best part about being a part of the OTO, is we got to hang out and talk about magic at the lodge after and before events. It was wonderful, and that I think is the only part about lodge magic that I'm ever going to miss, is that camaraderie of that when people aren't fighting each other, when they can just sit around and talk like this. This is really convenient.
This is a treat. Well, I love that we've done these two little bits now, and we obviously will have to do a part 3.
Yep, I'll have you over to my place next time.
I'll get on a plane and I'll mail myself in a box.
I meant on my YouTube channel, but that's okay.
Yeah, I really hope we get to physically get together with other people again. I mean, I think our governments are trying to kill all of us, but that's another subject. That I'm glad that we don't talk about that stuff. It's great to be able to talk to another adept from other traditions and other experience. I really wanted to get into GOESHiC stuff in your new book.
There's
but we'll do that next time. Yeah, that's
all right, man.
That will be very exciting. Thanks so much, and I definitely am pimping your new book to people. They can get it online, a limited signed or numbered copy for $50, right?
It's not signed, but it's
Oh,
numbered.
it's numbered. Even better.
Yes.
Even better.
One.
Yeah.
You know, I got a numbered copy of 777. Not 777. I wish it was seven. The Seven Spheres, and it was like number 689. I was like, you got to be kidding me! I didn't even get number one. And I called my publisher. I'm like, Frank, come on, man. You didn't send me number one. He goes, no, number one's mine. I said, where are the other 500? He said, I sold them.
Do you recommend working with that publisher?
Oh yeah, I love Frank, but
Yeah?
he's not for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have you have to be a certain kind of person to really get the vibe that Frank brings to the table. You know, he's just one of those people that just do what they say, you know, and mean what they say and do it. And he's got nothing. I mean, he is kind of Machiavellian, you know, and you know, he's smart and he's always aware of opportunities, but he's very down to earth. We've never signed a contract. We've never had any formal legal interactions, you know, because I don't give a shit. I want my books published. I'm not doing this for the money, you know. And if he wants to screw me out of the money and 1,000 books go out in the world, great. That's, you know, free advertising. It didn't cost me anything but time, so I don't mind doing that. But he has always played square with me. He's always been fair. He bumped me into the next tax bracket a couple of times without me knowing what was going on, and I had to pay a ton of taxes, but totally worth it. Much less than I made on the book. So yeah, I've got no complaints.
Yeah, for all you thinking you're going to get rich teaching occultism.
Yeah, this is the only time I've ever gotten a 5-figure check from anybody. So
wow, well, good for you. Many blessings, Rufus.
All right.
Very good to see you, and we'll do part 3 in the future. Everyone, go buy his book.
Yes, definitely.
Let's make him pay a lot of taxes. I know the government's going to need it.
Yeah, we got to get those body bags somehow.
Brother, conks on pax.
Conks on pax.
Ciao.
Ciao.